Hello everybody, it's Starrapter here. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Star Wars Canon, where every week I talk about everything new in the Star Wars universe, like the comics, novels, TV series, and the video games. This week we have 3 new comics. The first one I want to talk about is the Storms of Crait #1. This is a one-shot. It's a self-contained story. It's a little bit larger than your normal comic book issue. This one is a tie-in for The Last Jedi, and it's set in the original trilogy between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. So we have the Rebels on a mission to find a new base. This is before they find the one on Hoth. So they go to Crait. Leia has a contact there that her father once knew. It turns out that he betrays them and leads the Scar Squadron of stormtroopers back to them, and then they have to fight to survive to get out of that planet. So it really tells the story of why the Rebels abandoned this base on Crait. So let's get into the things that I really enjoyed about this particular issue. First thing I want to nerd out about is about Luke on a GR-75 transport, one of those weird kind of egg-shaped transports. You never really see the inside of one of them, so we get to see that. That's pretty cool. I liked seeing everybody on the ski speeders. This is before, 30 years before Poe and Finn and Rose are on them. We have Han and Luke and Leia flying on the ski speeders, trying to protect themselves from the speeder bikes of Scar Squadron. So that's really cool imagery. And I love seeing Luke in a lightsaber duel with Sergeant Krill. We've seen him in a duel with that character long before this one in previous issues of the Star Wars mainline comic. And it's really cool seeing Luke have this pretty awesome dialogue while he's fighting, and they have these like little earthworm things coming out to try to get both Luke and Sergeant Krill. But that's where the good ends for this comic book issue, because I had a couple problems with them, and the most glaring problem I have with this one is the lack of continuity with other content as far as Crait is concerned. So if you have read Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which I highly recommend, it's one of the best canon novels out. She takes a side trip to Crait, and her father has already been there, and he's already built a rebel base. Now, when I get there in this particular issue of this comic, it doesn't seem like there's any rebel presence that's ever been there. They are there to survey the land. Wouldn't the rebels have already done that to begin with? So it seems like the one hand at Lucasfilm wasn't paying attention to the other hand, which is what the story group is for, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know what happened to get lost in translation there, but it's very unfortunate. Another thing that's a little bit weird is where this is in the continuity for the Star Wars comics themselves. As far as the Star Wars mainline is concerned, we know that also is running in parallel to this, so I'm very interested to see where this falls in line, because we know they fought Scar Squadron before, so is this way in the future, or kind of set during the current run where they are on Jeddah? Not really sure about that one. Another thing I didn't like is some of the dialogue choices for these characters that we all know and love. This one I particularly want to mention is with Wedge, when he's like screaming at these stormtroopers about how they should have brought a Death Star to kill him, and it just seemed like it was way too much out of his character for some reason. And going to the next point is the artistry in this one. I didn't really like the art. Very much reminded me of what's going on in Star Wars mainline comics right now, which is a little bit too much with the facial recognition of the artwork. It's just like they're so realistic, and it just comes off as a little bit weird looking at it sometimes. I just don't really agree with the art style. And the next comic I want to talk about is Jedi of the Republic, Mace Windu #5. This is the 5th and final issue of the Mace Windu miniseries, so I really enjoyed issue #4 of Mace Windu. It had lots of flashbacks, so we pick up right where #4 left off. We have Rissa, we have Kit Fisto, we have Mace Windu. They are attacking that Separatist outpost head on, and they are trying to prevent the Separatists from getting those special resources from that planet out to space, and they do that successfully. So we have Kit Fisto taking on legions of battle droids alongside Rissa. Then we have a rematch between ADW4 and Mace Windu, so that's pretty cool. And then after that, a large portion of this particular issue is dealt with the betrayal of Prasit and what the Jedi will do to those that commit treason. So getting into the positives, I like what Kit Fisto opened up in the beginning of this issue with this cool monologue while he's fighting the battle droids, talking about this indigenous creature on his planet and how it's basically what he's doing to the droids is a metaphor for what that creature does to the other sea life on his planet. And the big thing I want to talk about is this trial that process goes through. This is the trial for when Jedi commit treason amongst one another. We actually find out, because I've always been so interested in that one moment when you have Anakin trying to save Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, and he says, we got to bring him to trial, and Mace Windu's like, no, we got to kill him now, kind of thing. And we actually get to see what a trial is with the Jedi. So, they get into the Jedi Council there, and they're deciding what to do with Prosit. Prosit wants himself to be killed, and Mace Windu actually thinks better of that. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. We do things the Jedi way, and this guy wasn't having it, so now he's going to spend the rest of his life in the library. And things I didn't like about this were the battle with Mace Windu. It was just too short. The battle between him and ADW4, I just feel like it should have been a little bit longer, as this being the climax of the issue. And going hand in hand with that point is, I thought the artwork was pretty misleading with this, especially during that battle with ADW4, which is another reason why I wanted it to be a little bit longer, because I was kind of confused about if ADW4 used the magnet on his hand to get Mace Windu's lightsaber to smash out the window. It's just very odd for me to see, and just not even that, but there's other problems that I've had with this entire series as far as the artwork is concerned. Mace Windu just doesn't look like himself in some of these images, and it's just kind of hard to see through that. So overall, my thoughts on the Mace Windu miniseries was, it was okay. I mean, this is set during the Clone Wars, and we don't see one clone trooper. Now, yeah, that's not a big thing with the story, but the big thing of the story with me is you don't really learn too much about Mace Windu. Well, aside from the 4th issue, but before that, it's basically another episode of Clone Wars, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but I've seen so much of that I really wanted this miniseries to be more focused on the character of Mace Windu and the characters of how they deal as being with generals. Like, I thought that's what the whole premise of this miniseries was. Apparently, it wasn't, because we don't see them dealing with command over troopers that are clones. So, to me, it was kind of an underwhelming comic book series. So the last thing we have for this week is Star Wars Adventures number 5. As always, there are 2 stories. The first one being The Trouble at Tabrin. Part 2 is a continuation from last month. So we have Luke, who has been captured by the Empire. We have Leia, who dons the disguise of an Imperial officer, and she goes aboard the Star Destroyer, and she kicks some serious butt and gets Luke out of there. And at the same time, she makes an alliance with the Ishitib, who come in to save the day at the end. So particular things I liked about this issue is seeing Leia kick so much butt, not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint as well. You got these guards hitting on her, and she's not going to have any of it. She's a very fierce, independent woman. Pretty cool stuff. I also liked seeing another thing from Empire Strikes Back, the torture chair that Han was on, or whatever you want to call it, that torture device. Like seeing callbacks of things like as minuscule as that. It's pretty neat. It was really cool seeing Leia actually make a deal with another species, the Ishitib, to join the rebellion. We haven't really seen much of that, especially post A New Hope. He's still getting allies for the rebellion constantly. Pretty cool. And finally, I liked a reference to the Clone Wars. We have Leia mentioning it. She was aboard the Malevolence, which is pretty funny because that got destroyed in like the first season of the Clone Wars. And the next story I want to talk about is The Best Pet. This is all about the Porgs. Yes, this is all about the Porgs and what their life is like, what their species is like, and what they behave like. And that's all this is really about. It's about the droid, I believe, talking about the species. Like he's reading from an encyclopedia is kind of how it is. It's like narrated into bubbles, and it's all, aboard the Millennium Falcon, I guess, as Rey and Chewbacca leave Ahch-To. You got all these Porgs going, causing havoc, and it's just, the artwork is just fantastic. It really just captures the cuteness of the Porgs. So next week, you guys can look forward to Star Wars number 41, as well as Star Wars Adventures, Forces of Destiny, Leia. It looks like every week for the month of January, IDW is putting out a Forces of Destiny comic that is going to focus on one certain, or in some cases, 2 separate characters, so I can't wait for that. That is going to do it for another week in Star Wars canon. What did you guys think of the Storms of Crait? How did you feel about the Mace Windu miniseries? And what are your thoughts on the Star Wars Adventures comics? Let's talk about it in that comment section below. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I have plenty of other Star Wars content that I release on a weekly basis, so you're going to want to make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of it. I'm Starrapter. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.